I was 8 months pregnant and went to Caleb's office to deliver documents. Seeing that the office was 46 degrees Celsius, I was about to turn on the air conditioner when his female secretary stopped me. Sister, in law, I got my period and I'm feeling cold, so we can't turn on the air conditioner. I was worried about heat stroke affecting the baby in my belly, so I glanced at her and turned on the air conditioner without another word. In the evening, Caleb, who had just returned from a business engagement, opened the door and started questioning me. Do you know that the 38 minutes and 19 seconds of cool breeze made Michelle's stomach cramp and she ended up in the ICU during her period? Caleb, are you bullying me because I haven't had my period? Besides, if I get heat stroke, it'll be a double fatality. Have you been drinking fake liquor? Caleb pulled at the corner of his mouth and nodded. I was confused. You're right. That night, Caleb coaxed me to sleep as usual. But when I woke up, I found myself in a cold storage room with glass enclosures on all four sides. The second-generation rich kids surrounded me, laughing. Outside the cold storage, Caleb, with Xinning's tender waist in his arm, looked at me and laughed. Worried about heat stroke? Today I'll make sure you cool down properly. My heart sank. I calmly took out my phone and took pictures of each of them, then made a call. Dad, I don't want these people to see tomorrow's sun. After the call ended, the onlookers outside were stunned at first, and then burst into earth-shattering laughter. When Catherine, your dad was thrown into the open sea to feed the sharks half a year ago. Are you frozen stupid? Or really stupid? Exactly. Still think you're the eldest daughter of the Wynn family. You wouldn't even dare to do that in your wildest dreams, would you? Caleb's eyes welled up with pride as he listened to his lackeys mock me. He gently draped the mink coat he was wearing over Xinning. He put his arm around her and slowly walked to the cold storage, extended an index finger and gently tapped the glass cover in front of me, then slowly opened my mouth. When Catherine, are you cold? Do you know you were wrong? The large red thermometer indicated that the cold storage had been opened to -50 degrees Celsius. I was shivering in the thin pajamas I wore before going to sleep last night. The skin in contact with the ground turned blue and purple. Numb. A sharp stinging pain kept coming. I stumbled and rushed to Caleb and Xinning, and punched the glass. Caleb, what did I do wrong? Isn't it right to turn on the air conditioning at 46 degrees Celsius? Pregnant women are naturally afraid of heat, and if they get heat stroke, it's a life for two. The sudden anger caused a sharp pain in my lower abdomen. I quickly covered my stomach and squatted down, staring at Caleb with bloodshot eyes. Caleb, let me out. You know how much I've suffered for this child in my belly. I can't lose him. A flicker of an unidentifiable emotion crossed Caleb's eyes. He knew better than anyone the heartache of wanting this child. An accident years ago made it difficult for Caleb to conceive. The egg retrieval needle, as long as my forearm, was inserted into my body for 8 years. Thousands of times. Only then did we have this child. 8 months. I've been trying to protect the pregnancy with utmost care until today. He once broke a servant's arm just because the brown sugar water they brought wasn't warm enough. Now, for Xinning's period, he didn't hesitate to lock me in a cold storage unit. A wave of bitterness washed over me, and just as I was about to speak again, Xinning yanked off the mink coat Caleb had just draped over her, and said with a wronged, tearful voice, Caleb, let my sister, in-law out. She's delicate and tender. How can she endure this kind of torment? Unlike me, a child from a poor family, I wouldn't dare utter a word even if I fainted from the cold in an air-conditioned room. Fainted from the cold. I only had the air conditioning on for half an hour. When I left Caleb's office, Xinning was still smiling and making plans with her girlfriends to go to the bar tonight. Just as I was about to explain the situation, Caleb's expression instantly changed, and his tone turned abruptly cold. Go in and strip her coat off. Isn't she delicate and tender? Today I'll let her experience the suffering of a child from a poor family. He bent down and picked up the coat, gently draping it over Xinning while looking at me coldly. Come out when you know you've done wrong. The doctor said my son is very healthy. Don't think about using this excuse to avoid punishment. After speaking, he scooped up Xinning in his arms. The gentleness and pampering in his words were overflowing. Michelle, you can't get your feet cold during your period. Today, you'll be in my arms. Let's see who dares to say anything. Caleb had just sat down with Michelle in his arms. A group of men rushed at me with sinister smiles. I desperately clutched my pajamas and cowered in the corner. But no matter how much I struggled, I couldn't match the strength of several men. Rip. The thin pajamas were torn in half. In an instant, the cold air crawled into every corner of my body through my pores. They stripped off my pajamas with excited laughter. When I went out, I saw Caleb's face full of playful laughter. Caleb, you're enjoying quite a meal. Sister. In law's figure. Everything that should be convex is convex, and everything that should be curved is curved. Not vague at all. Thanks, Caleb, for giving us the chance to take care of sister. In law. I curled up in my last piece of close-fitting underwear. My skin, which was originally warm, stuck to the cold ground, and any movement would tear off a piece of skin. The piercing pain from the torn skin and flesh stabbed into my heart. Bright red blood dripped intermittently from the torn skin and flesh. It was particularly noticeable in the brightly lit cold storage. Caleb clearly noticed it. He put down Michelle in his arms and stepped forward, looking at the bloodstains slowly flowing to his toes. Just as he was about to speak, Ning ran over from behind, touching the bloodstains through the glass. She said with a trembling voice, Sister. In law. Just admit you're wrong. Caleb has so many brothers around. It'll be hard for him to save face if you don't admit it. I stared intently at Ning. Why should I admit I'm wrong? I saw you comfortably enjoying the air conditioning that day, and you even had plans with your girlfriends. Fu Jingxing heard my words, and his gaze towards Ning held a hint of suspicion that was hard to notice. But before I could finish, Ning slapped herself in the face. Then she knelt down with a thump, grabbing Fu Jingxing's hand. She said with a trembling voice, Caleb, I really can't bear to see sister. In law suffering like this. If sister. In law still refuses to admit her mistake, then I'll kneel outside with her. Seeing Ning kneel down, that trace of suspicion in Fu Jingxing's eyes instantly disappeared. He quickly bent down and helped Ning up, then looked at me with disgust in his eyes. When Catherine, you've really been spoiled rotten. Ning has always put up with you all these years. Now, when it's clearly your fault, she's willing to suffer with you for my sake. How can you be worthy? Today I'm going to teach you a lesson about your spoiled princess temper. If you don't admit your mistake, you're not getting out of here. After speaking, he waved his hand at the people behind him. Go. Bring more ice blocks and surround her with them. Pour some water in too, so she sticks tightly to the ice. As soon as Caleb finished speaking, a girl behind him stepped forward and tugged at his sleeve. Caleb, adding water to ice will stick skin like glue, and any movement will rip off flesh. Sister. In law is about to give birth. I'm afraid something might happen. Caleb's commanding gesture froze mid-air. While he was silent, a soft moan came from behind him. Caleb, forget it. It wasn't as hard as you think when I was in the ICU. Ning's words made Caleb's gaze suddenly turn cold. He lowered his hand that was mid-air and said coldly, Do as I just said. The young girl wanted to stop him again. Caleb waved his hand at her. This bit of suffering is nothing compared to what Michelle went through. I've already prepared an ambulance outside. What could possibly go wrong? Hearing Caleb say this, the young girl dared not say anything more. Having received Caleb's order, those people holding ice blocks entered the cold storage. They grabbed my hair and tightly surrounded me with ice blocks. Then a basin of cold water was poured over my head. The next second, my skin felt like it was glued and stuck to the ice blocks. The bone, chilling cold, seeped into my marrow through my pores. Glanced at the time. I've been in this cold storage for at least 5 hours already. My limbs have long been frozen black and purple. To protect the child in my belly, I wanted to change my position in this space fixed by ice blocks. But every tiny movement would tear off a piece of flesh. But the heartbeat in my belly was getting weaker and weaker. I couldn't care about the stinging pain from where my flesh was torn off. Moving my body, trying my best to shield my belly in a warm place. The transparent ice blocks gradually became stained with my scarlet blood. By the time I adjusted my position, the ice blocks had already turned blood red. The people who were laughing and joking beside me also fell silent when they saw such a bloody scene. I roared at Caleb outside the cold storage through the fresh red. Caleb, if this child has the slightest mishap, then you the biological father, will be the murderer who killed him. I will kneel and pray before his soul every day, wishing you a terrible death." Caleb's gaze was no longer as firm as before. He slowly walked closer, as if trying to check on my condition through the blurry bloodstains. In the silence, a gasp suddenly came from behind. "Caleb." My dad said he saw a plane on the exclusive flight path of the Wynn family's private jet. Caleb's face changed drastically. He punched the glass and roared at me. "When Catherine, what do you mean? Do you want to scare me with your Wynn family for the rest of your life?" Before I could reply, Shin-Ning stepped forward and kept stroking Caleb's back, looking at me with accusation mixed with grievance. "Sister in law, if you don't want to admit you're wrong, fine. But why are you torturing Caleb like this? You know how much he suffered when old President Wynn was around. Now that old President Wynn has passed away and the Wynn family's assets have long been sold off. What's the point of you putting on this act?" After speaking, Shin-Ning gently took Caleb's hand and said softly, "Forget it. Caleb, let her out. We don't want the child to have real problems and for us to become sinners." "I see that, sister. In law has never thought of us lowly people as equals anyway." Shin-Ning's words made the anger in Caleb's eyes even fiercer. He let out a curse, then sternly said to the person behind him, "Set the cold storage temperature to -100 degrees. Immediately. Seeing Caleb in a rage, the person behind him didn't dare to say another word, and directly set the cold storage temperature to -100 degrees. Instantly, a bone-chilling wind blasted onto me from the ventilation opening. I was so frozen I couldn't speak properly, my teeth chattering uncontrollably. As my consciousness blurred, a piercing pain suddenly shot through my lower abdomen. I mustered all my strength to lean down and look. Bright red blood flowed out from under me like a small stream. In the bone-chilling cold storage, it emitted a scarlet steam. Soon, the blood melted the ice beside me and flowed out through the cracks. I finally realized what had happened. Clutching my stomach, I roared at Caleb outside the cold storage. "Caleb, let me out. The baby. Save my baby." Caleb, who had been glaring at me with anger, didn't completely lose his composure until he saw the blood flowing from the melted ice at his feet. He completely panicked, grabbing the person beside him and yelling like a madman. "Quick, get the cold storage key out. Didn't you ask the doctor if it was okay before sending her in?" "How could this happen?" The person handed the key to Caleb. Caleb's hands trembled so much he couldn't hold onto it. The key fell at Shin-Ning's feet. Caleb grabbed Shin-Ning's arm. "Michelle, quick, go open the door. Let your sister in law out. Hurry." Shin-Ning was scared by Caleb's demeanor and didn't bother to put on her shoes. She ran towards the cold storage door. She glanced at Caleb, took out the key, and with her back to Caleb, inserted it into the lock. The moment she turned around, I saw a look of hatred and triumph in Shin-Ning's eyes. As expected, with a crisp snap sound, Shin-Ning turned around and knelt down with a thud in the direction Caleb was running. "Caleb, the key." The key broke. Caleb's face instantly turned pale. Stumbling to the door, he questioned sternly, "What's going on? How did the key break? Hurry and call a locksmith." At this moment, the warm blood had already filled the entire cold storage room. I was in so much pain that I started to groan uncontrollably. "Caleb, sister in law hasn't admitted her mistake yet. You said you wanted to use this opportunity to change sister in law's overbearing temper. And so many friends are watching. Also, are the grievances I suffered in the ICU just going to be left like this? You promised to give me an explanation." Upon hearing this, Caleb called out to the person who was going to get the key, turned around, and kept banging on the cold storage door, shouting at me, with a hint of pleading in his tone. "When Catherine, won't you just admit your mistake? Even for our child." "Okay, as long as you're willing to admit your mistake, I'll let you out immediately. You don't want anything to happen to our child, do you? Please. When Catherine, what's wrong with softening your temper a bit?" The massive blood loss in an instant made my consciousness gradually blur. I collapsed in the pool of blood, and said with a trembling voice to Caleb outside the cold storage room, "Caleb, let me out. Otherwise, my dad will kill you." Shin-Ning showed a barely perceptible sinister smile as she looked at me, but her tone was still filled with a wronged, tearful cry. Sister. In. Law. Have you really lost your mind? Old President Wynne died half a year ago. And the Wynne family collapsed half a year ago. Hurry up and admit your mistake. Or no one will be able to save you. The people outside the cold storage also started to mock. Miss Wynne. Stop dreaming. You want to kill Caleb. Your dad is probably still a vengeful spirit suffering in hell. And you want to kill someone else. They laughed and tugged at Caleb's clothes. Caleb. I think this woman just doesn't learn her lesson. I think she's faking it. And the kid is fine. Let her stay in there. Yeah, Caleb. She bullied Michelle like that. You can't let her off the hook. The cold storage was already smeared with blood. They couldn't see, but I could feel it. The beating in my belly was getting weaker and weaker. I started to wail and roar on. Stop. Caleb paced restlessly outside the door. And when he looked at me again, a hint of helplessness flashed in his eyes. When Catherine. Stop thinking about your dad coming to back you up. He's really dead. Just admit you were wrong. Okay. Just say I was wrong. And I'll let you out. Wife. Give up. Your dad really won't come to save you anymore. As soon as Caleb finished speaking, the room door was kicked open from the outside. Then, a squad of fully armed mercenaries rushed in. A deep voice sounded from outside the door. Who says her dad won't come to save her anymore? As soon as everyone in the room heard that voice, their faces instantly turned deathly pale. They wanted to turn around and look, but their heads were already held at gunpoint, and they couldn't move. Caleb's face suddenly fell, looking at me in the cold storage. He angrily rebuked. When Catherine. What are you doing? Have you had enough? I looked through the glass at the person slowly walking in behind him. After seeing who it was, I burst into tears. Caleb followed my gaze and slowly turned around to look. The moment our eyes met, Caleb's legs went weak and he collapsed to the ground. He pointed a trembling finger at the person slowly walking towards him and stammered. Uncle Wen, weren't you dead half a year ago? The people present, upon hearing Caleb call his father's name, the faint-hearted had already gone limp like a puddle of mud. My father was considered a legendary figure in this circle. At the age of 13, he took over the shaky Wynne family from his grandfather. Business is like a battlefield. After grandfather passed away, the Wynne family's business was almost completely eroded by various prominent families. The day my 13-year-old father took charge of the Wynne family, the families in Jingquan celebrated for a full week. As the old saying goes, when a whale falls, all things grow. The falling of the towering tree that was the Wynne family meant countless opportunities were about to emerge in this land. Things indeed went as they had expected. Less than a week after my father took charge of the Wynne family, the Wynne family officially declared bankruptcy. They thought the Wynne family would disappear from this land forever. But 2 years later, at a very important land auction in Jingshi, a dark-skinned teenager bought all the land at that auction, with a total value of over 300 billion. Everyone mocked him for being young and reckless, waiting for the relevant departments to arrest this kid when it was time to pay. But 3 days later, the teenager paid the full auction price. That day, sharp-eyed people recognized the teenager. How does that kid look so much like the Wynne families? Wynne Mark. That's right. This 15-year-old teenager is my father. At 13, he left Jingshi for the war-torn country carrying the debts of his entire clan. No one knows what this teenager went through there. All anyone saw was, 2 years later, he returned with hundreds of billions and revived the Wynne family. It's not that no one investigated my father's background, but it is said that those who went to investigate him never returned. In the early years, watching his family's business being encroached upon, it's not that no one tried to frame my father, but every time before they could make a move, their own business would suffer a backlash of thousands of times. In just 3 years, my father made everyone in Jingshi know the name of the Wynne family again. And from then on, no one could shake the Wynne family's position in Jingquan. Therefore, Caleb's lackeys present were all terrified of my father. Especially Caleb. His family background is average, and his current status is entirely due to his father's support. He received a lot of guidance from his father over the years, so he was even more terrified of his father. While calling people to break open the cold storage door, watched Caleb, who was slumped on the ground, and slowly spoke. Disappointed that I'm not dead, aren't you? Father's voice wasn't loud, but it had a soul. Stirring magic. Caleb's face turned even paler. He trembled and kept shrinking back. How could that be? Uncle Wen. The day I heard you were in trouble, I cried all night on the ship. You gave me the chance to show my worth. And I've wished you a long life every day. Even if I thought you were dead, I kept your teachings in my heart every day. Father glanced at the cold storage door that had just been broken open. His expression suddenly turned icy. He leaned down, grabbed Caleb's collar tightly, and roared. Then why did you treat Catherine like this? Tell me. Why? Why can't Catherine have the air conditioning on in the office for half an hour? Why did you throw her, pregnant, into the cold storage to torture her like this? Tell me. Why? I haven't seen Father throw such a big tantrum in a long time. The last time he threw such a big tantrum was the day Mother died. He cried in anger, hating himself for not being able to protect Mother. Caleb, of course, hadn't seen Father like this. His body trembled even more violently. Seeing that Father wasn't calming down, he knelt down with a plop and started kowtowing to Father Non. Stop, Uncle Wen. It's not what you saw. It's really that Catherine's temper is too much. I wanted to use this opportunity to educate her, not to intentionally torture her. Even if you didn't come, I was planning to let her out. My daughter. Mark's daughter. Is it your turn to educate her? What kind of dog thing are you? Before Caleb could finish speaking, his father interrupted him. He punched Caleb in the face, his eyes turning scarlet from holding back tears. You animal. If Miss Catherine had even the slightest mishap today, you wouldn't leave here alive. Then his father glanced coldly at the quivering henchman of Caleb in the corner next to him. And you lot? Every single one of you. If Miss Catherine cries out in pain today, you'll all be buried with her. Those people's mouths were as if they were sewn shut. They didn't even dare to breathe heavily. Old President 1. The young lady has been rescued. I forced myself to hold on, trying to grab my father's hand. But as my ice cold fingertips touched my father's warm palm, I couldn't hold on any longer and fell into a deep sleep. I woke up to the pungent smell of disinfectant. My whole body was wrapped in bandages, and even the slightest movement was difficult. Caleb, you're finally awake. Thank goodness you're okay. Thank goodness your dad protected you this time. A pair of dry, warm hands stroked the top of my head. I looked at my gaunt father beside me, and could no longer hold back my tears. Sobbing loudly, after a long while, I slowly reached out my hand towards my lower abdomen. The flatness my fingertips touched shattered me completely. Dad, the baby. My father's tears splashed onto my pillow, and after a long pause, he finally spoke. We couldn't save it, Caleb. Dad really did his best. A wave of immense despair washed over me, and just as I was about to speak again, the hospital room door was suddenly pushed open from the outside. A disheveled Caleb stumbled in. The moment he saw me, he dropped his knees before my hospital bed with a thump. My father slapped Caleb across the face, raising his hand as if to have someone throw him out. But I stopped him. Dad, after being entangled for 8 years, there had to be some kind of conclusion. My father understood what I meant. Letting out a long sigh, he turned and left the room. Before leaving, he repeatedly cautioned, Caleb, don't be soft-hearted this time. After my father left, Caleb seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. He stepped forward, grabbed my hand, and with red-rimmed eyes, began to apologize. I'm so sorry, Caleb. I really didn't expect things to get to this point. Before I locked you in the cold storage, I asked the doctor. The doctor said you were about to give birth, and if you were properly looked after, there wouldn't be any major problems. I never expected to hurt our child. Caleb, I know you don't like Shining. Don't worry. As long as you forgive me, I will never contact her again. Okay. Looking at Caleb's apologetic eyes, 8 years of memories flashed through my mind like a movie. My first meeting with Caleb was in my father's office. At that time, my father wanted to hire a capable assistant. Caleb was a fresh graduate recommended by an unknown headhunter. Before Caleb, my father already had a preferred candidate. When he intended to turn away the subsequent people and leave, he saw Caleb at the door, bleeding profusely from his head after being hit by a chandelier. And the person under him was me. The company's chandelier, weighing several hundred pounds, suddenly fell. If it weren't for Caleb, I probably wouldn't have survived that day. Caleb thus got the chance to stay by my father's side. He wasn't particularly talented, nor had he seen much of the world. His social skills and workability were all very average. But my father had always been a grateful person, because Caleb saved my life. After Caleb joined the company, my father, just as he taught me, patiently taught Caleb the ways of the world. More importantly, my father began to teach Caleb business. I grew up in wealth, and the boys around me were all the same, following the path paved by their fathers step by step. I had never seen such a vibrant young man. He was like a wild grass, crazily wanting to take root in this rich soil. It was father who first noticed I had fallen for Caleb. On my birthday, he called me to his study for a heart talk that lasted all night. Caleb isn't right for you, Alon. Dad knows why you're attracted to him, but his kind of vitality will hurt you. You should find a boy from a suitable family. I interrupted him before father could finish speaking, and I never gave father another chance to speak. After that birthday, I took my luggage and moved out of the old house, and resigned from my job at the family business. To show my determination to be with Caleb, father indeed didn't stop me anymore. So we naturally started dating and got married. In the beginning, Caleb and I were almost a talking point in our social circle, a widely spread good story. Everyone even said that we broke the unwritten rule of suitable families that had been circulating in the circle for 100 years. Caleb gradually established a firm foothold in Wens. My startup company outside also began to show promise. Every day, no matter how late Caleb worked overtime, he would go downstairs to my company, buy a bouquet of flowers, and quietly wait for me to go home. Everyone in the circle knew that Mr. Fu's social engagements couldn't go past 9 in the evening. In fact, every time, before 8:30, he would have already left and be on his way to find me. Caleb's love gave me more confidence in front of my father. On my birthday 8 years later, still in that study, I swayed my wine glass and smiled at my father. How about it? My taste in men is pretty good, right? Now that we're having a baby, you should genuinely bless me, shouldn't you? My father had had a bit to drink at the dinner that day. He looked up and, for the first time in 8 years, responded to me and Caleb's relationship. Alon, why don't you make a bet with your dad? If Caleb gets through this hurdle, then Dad will completely hand over the Wynn family to him. That bet came into being. The next day, my father was pushed into the sea by a competitor on the high seas. In just 3 days, the Wens, like a shot down giant beast, completely collapsed. Initially, I had full confidence in Caleb, and it was just as I thought. Caleb searched for my father on the high seas for 7 days and 7 nights. During these 7 days, he didn't eat a single grain of rice. He only survived by the water I forcibly fed him every day. I secretly recorded Caleb searching for my father and sent it to him. My father just smiled and didn't reply after receiving it. After 7 days, despite using almost every method, there was still no news of my father. After my repeated dissuasions, Caleb finally gave up and went back. My father's sudden death. Caleb, the would-be helmsman, began to gradually take over the Wynn family's business. It was evident that he had learned some skills from my father over the years. Although his problem-solving wasn't as seasoned and composed as my father's, but at least, on the verge of collapse, he saved Caleb's again. The day Caleb's was restarted. After the intimacy, Caleb held me in his arms and whispered, "When Catherine, now that father is gone, I don't want the group to continue using the Wynn family's name anymore, because every time I see it, I feel sad. Can we change the group to Caleb's?" My heart trembled. But I thought of the despair in Caleb's eyes when he was searching for my father in international waters. I chose to believe him. The next day, the sign tens of meters long on top of the Caleb's building was changed to Caleb's surname. This was the first time Caleb made a change that I didn't send to my father. From then on, I sent fewer and fewer messages to my father, because things had already started to develop beyond my expectations. For the first time, Caleb had a female secretary by his side. At first, because I gave him the cold shoulder, Caleb replaced her without a second word. But when the HR department sent Shinning to Caleb, Caleb no longer cared about my cold shoulder. For the first time, his tone of speaking to me became impatient. "When Catherine, when can you change your spoiled brat attitude? Don't you know that female secretaries are supposed to be more meticulous than male ones?" Caleb's is on the verge of a cliff right now. Can you stop causing trouble? He seemed to have forgotten that he started at Caleb's as his father's personal secretary. The first time he spoke at the company's annual meeting, he personally said, "I think boys are more suitable to be personal secretaries than girls. Brave, decisive, rational." He listed 10,000 advantages, but when he faced Shining, he forgot them all. Later on, Caleb started coming home later and later. Mr. Fu, who used to have social events no later than 9 p.m., never came home before midnight anymore. Later on, he wasn't even there for my weekly prenatal check. UPS. My father messaged me proactively for the first time. "Caleb, it's not too late to cut your losses now." But I wasn't willing to give up. I couldn't believe my husband was so easily tested. Until Caleb threw me into a cold storage because Shining had her period. In that moment, my heart completely froze. I finally saw this man's true colors. It turns out, he never truly loved me all these years. Perhaps from the moment he interviewed at Wynn's 8 years ago. Perhaps from the moment he shielded me with his body at the risk of his life. He had already started plotting. "Caleb, don't ignore me. You're making me so scared. Please forgive me." "Okay, I really love you. Have you forgotten our 8 years together?" Caleb's trembling plea interrupted my thoughts. I turned my head to look at Caleb, let out a long sigh, and said in a deep voice, "Forgot." The moment the words left my mouth, I was stunned myself. It was despair born from extreme disappointment. Caleb probably didn't expect me to answer him like this either. His hand, which had been holding mine, gradually slipped away. When she looked up at me again, her face was streaked with tears. "Caleb, stop talking. Caleb, let's get a divorce." The moment the word, divorce, left my lips, I felt all my strength drain away. I had envisioned our future life with Caleb countless times, watching his back, perhaps growing old together, hand in hand, watching the sunset, perhaps surrounded by grandchildren, enjoying family bliss. I even imagined us parting in a hospital, on the verge of death. But I never expected things to end like this. After all, he was the man I loved for my entire youth. Tears unashamedly slid down the corners of my eyes. I knew we had no chance anymore. Caleb also seemed taken aback that I would utter the word divorce so decisively. His body began to tremble uncontrollably. He kowtowed and pleaded, "Caleb, don't be like this. I truly love you. Please give me another chance." "Okay." For some reason, hearing Caleb call me so intimately again, I felt a pang of disgust in my heart. My stomach churned in response. I really didn't want to entangle with him anymore, so I pressed the call button by the bed. The next second, my father rushed in with a group of bodyguards. They unceremoniously threw the wailing Caleb out. As the crying gradually disappeared down the hallway, my heart finally regained its peace. My father looked at me, who was in tears, with a face full of heartache, gently wiped away my tears and said softly, "Caleb, it will all pass." Dad was reflecting outside just now, wondering if it was his fault. "Perhaps without this trial, you and Caleb could have been happy for a lifetime." "No," I interrupted my father for the first time. "I want to thank you for letting me see him clearly early on. Everything is still in time." Yes. The moment Caleb knelt before me, I was truly scared. It seemed I had never truly understood this man all these years. He could risk his life to save me for power. He could kneel and beg me without dignity for power. If it weren't for that bet half a year ago, if my father had truly believed my words and handed the Wynn family over to Caleb in the end, then perhaps today, it would have been me and Dad who were irrecoverably ruined. A month later, I was discharged from the hospital after my recovery. Whiling on the sofa, I saw news about Caleb. After leaving the hospital that day, Caleb had completely disappeared from Jingshi. Until 3 days ago, Caleb appeared on the top floor of the Wynn's building, looking at the sign that had been changed back to Wynn's. He smiled and leaped to his death, dying on the spot. The day after Caleb's death, Shining was found dead in the basement of Wynn's, her bloodline completely severed, with no signs of foul play. Those lackeys in the cold storage that day. In less than a month, some died and some were injured. They all left suicide notes, claiming it was Caleb's doing. Caleb's fingerprints were also all over the scene. The evidence was sufficient, and the case was quickly concluded. My father narrowly escaped death and was trending on Jingshi for a full 6 months. During these 6 months, Wen swallowed up many enterprises in Jingshi, growing stronger again. I reinforced my armor under my already hardened shell. From now on, perhaps no one will ever be able to enter my heart again. But this is the ending I wanted, isn't it?